often are we confusing taking action with actually creating an accomplishment? My name is Catherine Cantey. I'm an executive coach and the podcast host of Business Vitality, where we share practical best practices that are continuing to allow businesses to remain vital for the long term. And today, I just kind of wanted to touch on the topic of, if you're creating action, is it always going to create some sort of significant accomplishment? And I'm here to beg to differ that if we just continue to show up and continue to take the same action day after day after day, we're not going to be able to create an accomplishment or become recognized for the work that we're doing if we continue to do the same thing over and over again. And I just want to take a few minutes, be able to share these thoughts with you. If you're curious about learning more at the end of this or at any point, feel free to add a message in the comments. And also at the end, if you want to continue the conversation, shoot me a message either on LinkedIn, or you can find me at catherinecantey.com. I'm an executive coach and a podcast host of Business Vitality. And what I've been seeing lately is working with leaders, helping them to maintain that momentum, continuing to show up and take the action. But it's not just any kind of action. They're taking intentional action. They realize that they are having to repeat the message. They realize that they're having to create consistency. And they're realizing that at times it gets a little mundane, and at times it gets a little repetitive, and at times they could easily become burned out. And the folks that are separating themselves from the others, the truly successful leaders, what they're doing is they're able to continue to focus and continue to not burn out and continue to get just 1 degree better day after day, month after month, year after year. And it sounds like it would be really complicated to create an amazing accomplishment. And truly, what they're doing is continuing to show up, continuing to serve, continuing to lead with kindness, continuing to find insights just to get a little bit better. And that's what we're working with the individuals that I'm working with doing individual coaching. That's what I'm doing when I'm working with teams. Coaching teams to help create significant change within an organization. And because we're able to partner with businesses, executives, leaders, teams, we're able to create measurable change because we're using practical applications. Practical applications is something such as showing up with a very intentional message and being able to relay that consistently over time. If you are just joining, I would love to hear where you're from. If you want to put in the comments section where you're coming in from, that would be fantastic. What I have found over the years doing these is we connect with people all over the globe. And what's pretty special with that is I live in the South, and I may talk a little funny with my accent, but what I'm finding is we're connecting with people all over the globe. And it's just fascinating, even if you're listening to a replay, just to be able to hear where are you coming from and what are some topics that are on your mind in regards to leadership and creating the positive change that you need to within your organization. So my name is Catherine Cantey. I have spent probably 25 years in banking. I started out as a very young bank teller. I took jobs that nobody else wanted. I started out as a float teller. And as a float teller, you just go wherever HR tells you to go. And so I remember back in the day, I worked for Nations Bank, and they would put me in the branches that they couldn't staff. And one of the funny stories was they put me in a branch, and back in the day, there was no direct deposit, and we would get checks. And if we got payroll checks on Friday, and if Social Security checks were on Friday, meaning the first Friday of the month, and it was a payroll, it was a big day at the bank. And as a float teller, I'm just working the drawer and trying not to set the security buzzer off, which I had done a few times in this particular branch because the button was right underneath my knee. And luckily I had not set off the alarm that particular day, but working in that environment, front row position of like working with the customers, counting the money that comes from the C stores, which are convenience stores. And if you know anything about convenience stores, the money usually comes in wet because we're in the South and people are sweating. So I'm counting money and taking deposits in the morning. And then we get some folks that are coming in, and we've got this line going out the door. And part of that experience as a young person working the bank teller line in branches that they couldn't staff was I got to learn to work with customers, and I got to figure out how to make things work on the fly. And I remember one summer I was in this particular branch, and it turned out that it was a big payroll check day. It was the benefits and Social Security checks were also on that day. And as the day continued, as we got closer to 2, 3, 4 o'clock, we realized we didn't have enough cash. And so we didn't have enough cash in the particular branch. And as somebody young who's trying to figure this out and just trying to work with the leaders that are around us, you figure out how to consolidate the cash into one or two drawers, and you continue to smile and you continue to speak with the customers and make sure everybody's happy. And then as that drawer runs down and you got one working drawer left, you figure out what else are we going to do, and you just observe. And so over the years, I have observed business best practices. And what I observed in that, could have been a very stressful environment, was that these ladies that were in charge of this particular branch in the middle of nowhere knew who they needed to call. They knew where they needed to go meet up to get cash from somewhere else. And I'm sure this is making compliance nervous as anything, but this was also 25 years ago. So they figured out how to go get cash, and they came back and they continued to cash the checks. So at times you need to step back, you need to watch and see what the folks that have been here for a long time continue to do. And they rose to the occasion. They began to figure out, all right, this is a heavy Monday, or I'm sorry, a heavy Friday of cashing checks. And we've got, two on the drive-through, two on the front line teller lane, and we just began to consolidate cash. And as that cash was going down, they started making phone calls to other branches to see where they could get some more cash from, and they figured it out. We didn't close the doors. We didn't show any nervous tendencies. There was just some note passing going on, and figuring out how to make stuff happen. And that was probably one of my earlier days of just being on the front line, seeing what we need to do to allow business to continue to operate in a successful manner. And, you learn from it. And the next week we ordered extra cash, and the first of the month they ordered extra cash. But sometimes you just got to figure it out. And a lot of the folks that I'm working with now in the executive coaching role, we got to figure it out. But part of figuring it out is not confusing the day-to-day action that we're taking and thinking that we can replace just daily activity, daily action that we take. We cannot confuse that and think that that action is going to just automatically create an accomplishment at the end of a time period. We have to be very intentional with what we're doing. I have got probably too many stories of those, and probably some that I shouldn't repeat. So if you think that one shouldn't have been repeated, I definitely won't tell you the other ones. But if you're just dialing in, I'd love to hear where you are listening from. And I think, the technology today, it's fantastic when it works. And it's even more fantastic to connect with people across the globe and be able to share just business best practices. And when I look back on my career, why am I doing this? Why am I continuing to record and share information? It's because I had people that poured into me at a very early age. And I know I cannot go back to those people and try to pay them back. There is no way that I can possibly pay them back for what they taught me in the moments of these opportunities that continue to pop up. So my way to be able to pay them back is to record this, is to be able to provide executive coaching, whether it's to teams, whether it's to individuals, and to be able to pay it forward. I had too many people that were very kind to me that continued to allow me to pay it forward. And this is the way that I want to return the favor. So that's a little bit about my why. And I can even share another story. Last night I had one lady that has just made a huge impact on me and my banking career. Fast forward probably to my early 20s and 6 years into banking. And she took me into the operations center, and she showed me the ways. And I'm forever grateful for her. We continue to text back and forth. We haven't worked together in a number of decades. And she shot me a note last night. And she just said, hey, just want to let you know, I remember all the work that we did together, and I'm just grateful for our time. And it's just pretty cool to be able to stay in touch with people that were such a great mentor and sponsor for us early in our careers. And again, I can't pay her back, but what I can do is be able to pay it forward and be able to help others. So this is why I'm doing the executive coaching, the podcasting, and the lives. Hey, David, it is good to see you from Charleston. Thank you so much for being here. I hope your weather is a little bit better than ours. I know the rain hit here where I am in South Carolina, and it dropped the temperatures off by 30 degrees. So we definitely like that because we were in the three-figure temperatures not too long ago. So today I'm talking about the difference between not confusing just day-to-day activity with creating accomplishment. And if we look around the people in the office, the people that we've known forever and ever, we want to wonder, what are they doing? Are they continuing to fill out the same TPS reports that they've always filled out? How are they doing the same reports that they've always done day after day, month after month? Do you see any change in that? Do you see that the activity they're taking is creating some sort of major accomplishment, something bigger than themselves? And it's okay that we're going to have folks in our lives that don't mind coming up and doing those reports. But if you're out and you're learning and you're wanting to get better and you're curious about some of this work that we're talking about, this is, an opportunity to be able to say, okay, not only am I going to show up and do these reports, not only am I going to be doing this job, but how do I go a little bit further? And a lot of the folks that I work with, even just the reach outs that I continue to have, they're like, how do I stretch? How do I get a little bit further? And that's what I want to talk about is like, how do we separate ourselves from just taking action to creating accomplishment? And what I have found, there was a talk kind of, I guess I'm going back down memory lane again, but there was a talk that Zig Ziglar did that I loved. And I just remember listening to it at least 20 times one week on the way into work, because I always had a long drive into work. And what Zig Ziglar talked about is you will always hear other people talk about taking action when it's convenient. And one of these talks that Zig Ziglar talks about is, I'm going to take action. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to go for that promotion. I'm going to, whatever it is, people have goals. And so what he always said, he always joked about, they're going to take action after the kids go back into school. They're going to take action after the holidays, after the new year, after spring break, after the kids get out of summer. Well, the kids are going to be back out for the summer. Well, I'm going to take action again when they go back to school. And if you listen to the story, it's like we're just always waiting for that next great day where the sky's going to be blue and we're not going to have anything to do on our calendar. And then that's the day where we're going to create action. And really, the action is right now when we take it. We're going to clear off our desk. We're going to start with a new piece of paper right now where we are, accept where we are, and know that we need to stop taking the normal action and start taking intentional action. And too often we just get stuck into responding what's happening around us. Like when we open up our emails are just asking us to continue to do something for someone else. And I've had a great podcast interview with Bob Mesta on business vitality. And I thought what he explained to me was brilliant. Simply put, practical application. Again, a lot of the stuff that we're doing, they're practical applications, practical comments. You're like, oh, that's so clear cut. He said, when you look at an email box, this is what Bob Mesta shared with me. You look at an email box, think about it. That is a list of to-dos from everyone else in your world. Everyone else in your world is sending you an email for you to do something. So when are you going to actually be able to do something for yourself? When are you going to intentionally take action to create that change that you know you need to do in order for you and for your career and your life to move in that direction that you're hoping to move to? So, sometimes we just show up and we just continue to respond. And when we're continuing to respond, we can't stop what we're doing to proactively change the course that we are hoping one day we're going to get back onto. So for those of you just dialing in or listening, if you're listening to the replay, my name is Catherine Cantey. I'm an executive coach and a podcast host of Business Vitality. I love to be able to share practical applications. I work with teams and individuals, and we use practical applications to create measured leadership change. And we can do that. And when we create this measured leadership change, it accelerates the results within the organization. This was all taught to me over the years by a great man, Marshall Goldsmith, and his co-founders, Chris Coffey and Frank Wagner, and they've been a tremendous support to me. And what we can do is take very complicated things and boil it down into simple, intentional action and create recognizable change. And when we include people around us along the way, we can actually create this cognitive behavior shift between what we're doing and what others perceive that we're doing, and we can accelerate the results. So if you're curious about accelerating the results, accelerating the recognition that you're receiving in your world, or you know someone that really just needs that extra push to be able to receive that recognition, reach out to me, send me a note. I would love to hear what they're working on. I have a particular lady, she keeps pinging me. She's got different opportunities that come her way, and she's like, can you help with this? And so many times conversations that we have, just casual conversations, people reaching out to me, they just start with, I don't know if you can help me, but this is what's going on. And very often I can roadmap something out. We can co create a solution together. We're going to break it down into tangible steps because it is important to break it down into tangible steps in order to create change. We've got to take the complicated and simplify it. We've got to break it down, I say, into 3 steps. And if we can't take it down into 3 steps and we're like still overwhelmed, then take each step and break down each one of those steps into smaller 3 steps. It helps because otherwise we're just going to get bogged down on the details and we're never going to be able to create that momentum that's going to allow us to create the accomplishment that we're seeking at the very end. So, David, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but if you're still here, I'd love to hear from you of breaking steps down, and not all action is good action. Sometimes we just show up and keep reacting to everything. And sometimes we got to hit the pause, the reset button, and begin to hit the proactive button, which is really hard. But once we shift and once we get to that next side of proactively owning our calendar, our time, and our events in our life, like the game changes and things open up like you've never seen before. And it's a lot of fun to be able to participate in that shift. So if you're just dialing in, my name is Catherine Cantey. I'm an executive coach, podcast host. And today I just kind of want to talk about how we don't want to confuse activity, just repetitive activity, with equaling accomplishment. It just doesn't happen that way, in my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Shoot me a note. I'd love to be able to talk with you about that. But I want you to start thinking about, if today's the day that you're going to try something new, the shift in what we're going to do that's something new is you can continue to show up and continue to take action. But these are the kind of questions that I want you to ask. And this is something that you could write down very easily and be able to reflect on this. And I call it intentional reflection. Sometimes you can meditate. And if you've ever meditated for the first time, if you're anything like me, I thought it was a big waste of time because like my brain is just going all the time. And as I got into learning about meditation, I realized that's part of meditation, is realizing our brain is bouncing around. And so how do we become intentional with our action? How do we become intentional with our reflection? How do we become intentional with our mindfulness? And in this action of just continuing to reflect on it, how do we reflect on it? And so as we look at what did we do today? What did we do last month? There are questions that you can ask, that you can reflect upon to see if this is the direction that you want to continue with. And if you have found that you're completely happy with where you are, then that's fantastic. Then know that this is where you need to be. But I have met with countless people, it's countless, of how many people are continuing to just want to do more, continue to get recognized. They want to grow their career, they want to grow themselves, they want to grow their business. And to do that, a very practical application is look at the past week that you had, look at the past month that you had. I want you to ask yourself a few questions and write these questions down. The first one is, over the past month or over the past week, what happened? What were those key events, those key drivers? What were those key items that happened either last week or last month? The next question I want you to write down, and these are reflective questions, like you need to sit on the porch and think about this kind of stuff. Or if it's too hot outside like it is here, go find an air-conditioned car. I cannot tell you how many times I have sat in the car to reflectively answer these questions. I can't tell you how many folks that just have conference calls in their car. It is a soundproof, well-insulated place. You control the climate. You get to have a window to look out, and you get to have a good conversation. So if you're sitting in the car with the air conditioner on, I can relate. The second question is, what did you learn from it? So last week, what happened? Or last month, what happened? So think about your time period and ask yourself, the first question is, what happened? The second question is, what did you learn from it? So last week, what did you learn from it? Did you have too much space on the calendar? Did you have too little space on the calendar? Did you wish that you had something that there were some buffers in that calendar in order to have a more impactful week? But like, what did you learn from whatever it is that happened last week? Another question I want you to write down, the third question is, what do I want to keep doing? So as you look at your past week or even your past month, depending on how many activities you had, last week was maybe a slow week for some people because it was the 4th of July week. But last week, you know what happened? What did you learn from it? But that third question is, what do I want to keep doing? What is it that I really liked about last week that I want to keep doing? The fourth question is, what do I want to stop? And that's a question. What do I want to stop doing based upon what was happening last week or based upon what happened last month? That's a hard question because a lot of people want to take on more, but to take on more, you have to say no. And when you say no, you get to say yes to some other opportunity, but you don't get to say yes to everything. There's only so many hours in the day. So, what do you want to stop doing when you look at last week? I was just reading a Harvard Business Review article, and it said, in order to increase employee morale and to keep the employees engaged, they're starting to hire virtual assistants to be able to do some of the repetitive work at some of the more executive levels. And it's creating time to allow their employees and their team in order to accelerate in their career. And I can't tell you the power of a quality virtual assistant will change your life in a good way. And I've worked with one for the past number of years, and it's fantastic. I can truly just let go of so many items that were going to be very time consuming for me to create the bandwidth for me to continue to lean into other projects. It allows her to grow, it allows me to grow, and then I just continue to share with her, and she finds better ways to do things. So, is there something you want to stop doing? And if you want to stop doing something, how are you going to let go of it? And is it okay that if somebody that you're going to give that work to, is it okay for them to do the quality of that work at 80% in order for you to get 100% of your time? So think about that. The fourth question, what do you want to stop doing, or what do you need to stop doing? And then as a result of these four questions, the last question, question number 5, what do you want to do differently going forward? So if you look at last week, last month, things, that happened, what'd you learn from it? What do you want to keep doing? What do you want to stop doing? Most importantly, what do you want to do differently going forward? Do you like certain aspects of what happened? Do you want to keep doing that? Do you want to keep leaning into that? Or do you want to stop certain pieces and say, like, that's just no more for me? Like, that was great for me 2 years ago, but this is not what I need to be doing today. And so often, we get stuck in just taking action, taking action, taking action. We've got to pause and intentionally reflect on it in order for us to figure out what the accomplishment is, what the goal is going forward. So for those of you that are dialing in or just being able to watch this, my name is Cantey. I am an executive coach and a podcast host of Business Vitality. Business Vitality is my name, my framework for being able to put together 20 plus years of corporate experience, leadership experience, and be able to put that together into a solution that I used over and over again in corporate. And since I left corporate, have applied it to other clients as well. But it's just a process to figure out, how do we take language from the operations center, language from the customers, and language from the boardroom, and be able to gel it together so that it creates a triple win for the client, for the boardroom, for the operations center. We all know that we don't survive without operations. We all know that we need the customer to continue to come in and use the services, but we also have to have the strategy and the vision that's going to allow us to go there. And so over the past 25 years, I've been able to have opportunities that have allowed me to see, how do we bridge these communications, and then how do we deliver a product to a customer and keep the customer happy, but also make sure operations has the skills and the technology and the support in order to deliver the service. And then also with the boardroom to make sure that we all know that we're in that strategic alignment of where we're going to be taking the business over the short and long term. So, Business Vitality is a podcast that I also put together where we just share business best practices. And as a master executive coach, I work with teams and individuals. And we use practical applications to create measured change. And because we're able to use practical applications, we're able to accelerate the results that our clients are getting. I had one client that told me, hey, we can get these leaders up to speed in 2 years. That's great. Within 90 days, we were able to get them recognized change. And again, after that, we were able to get them additional recognized change after that. But it doesn't just come with like one shot of getting recognized change. The leaders that I'm working with, we put a measurement in early in just to create the momentum. But the leaders that are creating the significant amount of change for the long term continue to stay in for a good 12, 18, 24 months. And they create substantial change and accomplishment within an organization because they are constantly finding ways to refine and get 1% better. They are not just showing up blindly taking action. They're taking the action intentionally that's going to take them into the direction that they're heading for the long term. So to kind of tie into that, I was on a coaching call last week, and a very energetic executive was on the call and wanted to remind me that this person had received recognition within a very abbreviated short time frame. And to be honest with you, I would safely say all of my clients are able to get recognized change shortly into the engagement. And it's due to the process that we have behind this. And as we go through this, they're beginning to question, why do I need to keep doing this? Why do I have to keep working on this? And I wanted to remind them, the best of the best, think of the best athlete, think about the best musician, entertainer, anybody that's out there. They don't just show up and knock it out of the park one time. They continue to go back to the gym. They go back to the stage. They go back to rehearsals. They continue to refine their work. These are the people that sustain for the long term. These are the ones that have the vital skill sets that are going to allow them to continue to get a little bit better. And the leaders that I've been working with for the longest, they are ruthless and they never give up. They always find 1 more percent. And in the beginning, it is so easy to create change because there's so much low-bearing fruit that they don't even know it's around them. And so I work with these clients and we find this low-hanging fruit. And they get the recognition that way, which is fantastic. And as they're doing that, it's kind of like picking up a boulder. It's significant. You're going to get noticed if you make a substantial change. And oddly enough, it doesn't always have to be some huge monumental change that they're creating. It's usually something that somebody values around there that they're receiving feedback on and they're able to pick up and implement. The challenge is, like with most organizations, most leadership for the long term, there's only so many boulders you can move. At some point, you got to start picking up the pebbles. You got to start bending over and picking up all the small pieces that are going to create the change. This is where the monotonous, boring, consistency, the burnout is going to happen. So once you get that first step of momentum, the second step of momentum, and you're building on this, at times you begin to wonder, do I need to really keep doing this? And it's not just that you're just taking action. You're going to have to dig a little bit deeper into the action. You're going to have to reflect on it. You're going to have to pull. You're going to have to work at this. You're going to have to identify what is that next thing. And as this leader was working on building better teams and received recognition for it in a very accelerated time frame, they took that as kind of checking the box for the grocery store. Like, we're at the grocery store. We're going to check the box. I got the milk. I got the cheese. I got the eggs. Leadership doesn't work that way. You don't check the box. And as I was working with another leader, somebody explained to me they had an individual that read the job description and thought, I did everything on that job description like it was a checklist. I must be good to be promoted. It doesn't work that way. You don't just get recognition. You have to build the sponsorships within the organization. You have to take intentional action with these people, and you have to continue to grind it out and find that next 1%, that small pebble that's going to create the big movement that you're striving for. Otherwise, we're just taking action after action after action after action, and that's totally fine, but it's just not going to move you towards the avenue of the accomplishment that you're looking for. And so even though I may say that action isn't going to create accomplishment, I want to clarify and I want to say, if you want to create accomplishment, you will have to show up, you will have to show action, but it's going to have to be intentional action. You cannot show up and have an empty brain and not participate and just continue to punch out the TPS reports. It doesn't work that way. You have to show up with intention, and intentional action over time will create the accomplishment. But also, as this individual who was working on building teams is something that will never go out of fashion. Building teams, if you can build a team, you can put yourself in anywhere within an organization. There is always a team somewhere that's going to need help. And for someone to know, for a sponsor to know, a CEO to know, a chairman to know, someone who can build teams regardless of the skill set on the team, that will make you indisposable. That kind of action will create a greater accomplishment and a greater legacy for you and for the people around you. So just thinking that you can build a better team and get recognition within a short time frame doesn't mean that you get to check the box and you don't have to work on it anymore. You have to grind it out. You have to continue to work at building the teams, because as you continue to build the team's going to get a little bit better. And as the team gets a little bit better, you get to step out a little bit further and begin to work on the strategy and the vision. And you build your team in order to let them run, and you get out of their way. So as we're working on this, we just want to begin to think about, don't just confuse activity equals accomplishment. Activity doesn't equal accomplishment. Intentional activity, day after day, pebble after pebble, is going to create the accomplishment. And it's not something as simple as a grocery store list or a job description that you can just check off. You've got to continue to show up. You've got to continue to have the discipline, and you've got to protect yourself. You have got to figure out ways to refuel yourself in order for you not to burn out. Because at the end of the day, you're going to get burned out having to show up and work on the same thing and repeat the same message. But the most effective leaders, they know what the message is. It is simple, it is easy to remember, and they repeat it over and over and over again until they get over the finish line. It is not a message that changes in 4 months. It is a long-term strategic message. So if you're just dialing in, this is Catherine Cantey. I am an executive coach and a podcast host of Business Vitality. I work with teams, businesses, individuals, and we create measurable leadership change using practical applications. Because we use practical applications and a framework that has been around for 4 decades, we are able to accelerate the results. 100% of my clients have been able to create measured change because of the hard work that they're doing, and I'm here to cheer them on. I'm here to share my experiences for 25 years in corporate America, traveling around the country, for them to be able to kind of have somebody who's been in their shoes and to be able to be a sounding board. If you would like to learn more about any of these conversations, any of the work that I'm doing, you can learn more about me at catherinecantey.com. And I appreciate David for being here today. And anybody catching the replay, I'd love to hear from you if there are 1 or 2 things that stood out. I know some folks just send me messages on the side, and I appreciate it. I love just to kind of hear what's clicking and what's not, so then I can continue to get a little bit better down the road. So thank you so much for being here. Again, my name is Catherine Cantey. If you'd like to learn more about the work that we're doing, please visit us at catherinecantey.com. Thanks so much.